everyone, for joining us in celebrating the life of my grandfather, George Sparks. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda, and I'm the eldest grandchild of George and Vicky Sparks, daughter of Stacy Sparks. My grandfather was a lifetime resident of this beautiful Bulkley Valley. He loved this charming piece of paradise and never wanted to live anywhere else, which is probably why he never did. This was his home for nearly 85 years, until his day of passing, February 28th. For as long as I can remember, my grandpa was one hard-working fellow. He would awake early in the morning with his mind already full of his to-do list for the day. Depending on the season, this could involve a variety of activities, but most always and undoubtedly involved working on my grandparents' beautiful property. In the winter months, my grandpa could be found outside, plowing the snow on his latest refurbished lawnmower snowblower contraption, or in the shop fixing the quirks of his latest conversion. In the summer months, my grandpa could be found in a few places, this contingent upon the time of day. In the early morning, he would be in the kitchen preparing breakfast, as he always did. On a typical day, this would likely be porridge and toast, although this was not the grandpa specialty we all looked forward to. My grandpa was known for his crepe Suzettes, and boy are they delicious. On special occasions, this was most definitely the breakfast of choice in the Sparks house. Grandpa's crepes were extra special because the recipe did not exist. Not to another mind other than my grandpa's, that is. Perfected down to a science and whipped up for over 50 years, it is safe to say that we grandkids considered these crepes the very best, and to this day the competition is still slim. During the mornings of the summer months, the chore list continued. There was the watering of the garden, mowing of the grass, fixing of the lawnmowers, making furniture for himself and his family members, welding, and most important, napping in the old Chrysler. If you could name it, he could build it. If it was broken, he would fix it. If you could conceive it, he could achieve it. My grandpa truly was a jack of all trades. During the course of his life, my grandpa was employed within several different professions and occupied many different vocations, including buttermaker, coal miner, and millwright. It was only recently, prior to my grandfather's passing, when I learned of his love of airplanes and his dream as a young lad of joining the armed forces and becoming a fighter jet pilot. This dream, thankfully for me and my family, did not come to fruition. The war ended, and my grandpa was forced to keep his feet on the ground. But, as with everything in life, this change of events happened for a reason. This newfound freedom allowed my grandpa the opportunity to explore local job opportunities and begin planning for his future. Several years later, a spry young lady came to town on a 2-week vacation visiting her sister. Those big blue eyes and fiery personality caught my grandpa's attention, and well, that 2-week vacation turned into a lot more. Over 50 years of marriage followed, which included the birth of 2 little girls, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. My grandpa's life was well-lived, well-fulfilled, and he was exceptionally well-loved. My time with my grandparents was plentiful throughout my entire life, particularly in the early years. I was lucky enough to live with my grandparents for the first several years of my life, and according to pictures, this made my grandpa elated. He had a new partner in napping. Flipping through an old photo album always makes me smile. I see there's a picture of me asleep with Grandpa on the chair. And then there's another, and then there's another. And oh look, now we appear to be asleep on the couch. I imagine that I helped him stay very well rested in those early years. Throughout my childhood years, my brother and I spent a great deal of time out at my grandparents' house. When we lived in Smithers, I think we were there on a weekly basis. And once in Terrace, we would make the 2-hour drive down with our mom and spend every holiday in the warmth of my grandparents' company. How could we not? Those crepes weren't going to eat themselves. Oh, and did I mention the garden fresh strawberries and old-fashioned whipped cream? In later years, during several summer breaks from university, I was fortunate enough to spend some more time living with my grandparents. Well, I worked at the credit union as a summer student. Life couldn't have been better. I was making some money for my next year of school, living with two of my most favorite people in the world. Rent-free, I might add. Having literally every meal prepared for me, and I had my Mr. Fix-It grandpa readily available to tune up whatever beater car I happened to be driving at the time. Needless to say, I was not in a hurry to go back to school come September. It was a life of luxury, complete with a full belly and a full bank account, and I may have been just a wee bit spoiled. Just a little. Time passed, graduation followed, and shortly thereafter, I came into contact with another Mr. Fix-It. I wasn't searching and had little faith that I could meet a fellow who could come even close to matching the capabilities of my old grandpa. But something told me I may have found a competitor. And so it was, we brought another Taurus the Bull into the family, and Grandpa finally had another man around who not only knew what all the tools in the shop were, he knew how to use them and use them well. Thankfully, my grandpa had set the bar so high, and I was fortunate enough to marry a man as enduring as my grandpa. And yes, I must say, I'm still a wee bit spoiled, just a tad. A few years ago, we were blessed with the birth of our son. When I found out we were having a baby boy, I knew immediately that I wanted to have my son commemorate my grandpa and have his great-grandpa be part of him forever. It was for this reason that we named our son Jerzy, which is the Polish version of the name George. I am very thankful that my son was not only able to meet his great-grandfather, but have a few naps in his arms as well. On behalf of all George's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchild, I would like to say how much we all respected him and how much we will miss him. My grandfather inspired us all in many ways. His legacy will live on in our hearts for the rest of our lives. And every time I see my son look up and say, "Airplane, airplane," and wave, I can't help but think about my grandpa and hope that he has finally fulfilled his wish and is flying around in a jet somewhere watching over all of us. Thank you for coming.